And I heard a lot about the workshop the other day. I think we're going to learn a little bit about Beyonce. I heard that it was very participatory, so let's see what happens. So we'll listen to a sound of the bell.
Good morning, dear respected Thai, dear Sister Chan Kong, our beloved community. It is an honor to be up here, and I'm very well aware that any one of you can be up here talking about your experience during the retreat. So I'm going to treat this kind of like a Dharma sharing, the wholesome seeds that have been nourished in me, my transformation, and also just my path of suffering and my path of healing. There we go. So I'm going to be talking a little bit, things that I introduced in my workshop the other day, and some new insights that have happened since. So I just want to acknowledge our spiritual ancestors, our beautiful land ancestors of the Kumeyaay Nation, this beautiful earth, this land that has been holding us and supporting us, and our blood ancestors. And some of my practices, I'm also a certified facilitator of the Resilience Toolkit, which really mixes mindfulness of the body and somatic practices to help regulate our nervous system, calm our nervous system. And this has been a way that I have approached my practice. The Plum Village practice is definitely my anchor. But with my history, I've noticed that more body-based practices has been really supportive for me. And I've done a lot of work with somatic experiencing and different. I've tried it all. I guess in that sense, I am a scientist because this whole path has been, what's going on inside me? Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And what is the way out? And Thai always says, the way out is the way in. So I will be talking about trauma, and if anything is uncomfortable or overwhelming, I invite you to take care of yourself, whether it's seeking support, taking a drink of water, or taking a walk. And lots of alternatives. And we have a beautiful monastics and staff who are here and happy to support you. So I'm going to start with Our True Nature, and then Joe Riley's song, Our True Nature. We are wired for love. We are wired for love. We are wired for connection. We are wired for healing and transformation and resilience. So it is already inside all of us. Just like the Buddha is already inside of us. Just like the divine, the goddess, Thai. It is already inside us. It is inside our nervous system. It's just a matter of how can we create the conditions to allow allow these seeds to manifest and sprout. And what happens is, for some of us, our nervous systems aren't really wired in the most helpful way. And a lot of it has to do with healthy interactions with caregivers. And I will give out all these slides. I'm just going to kind of go through them quickly. So if we don't have an attuned and caring, gentle caregiver when we are young, then our nervous system becomes dysregulated. It becomes stuck. If you can imagine a baby crying, an attuned, loving caregiver will pick up the child, hold the child, rock the child, and figure out what the baby needs. And then the baby's nervous system, which was dysregulated, gets calm. The baby's nervous system mirrors the caregiver. And what happens in some situations, especially in situations of trauma, we don't have that nervous system. So we don't have a felt sense of safety. We don't have a felt sense of being loved. And with resilience, it's okay if we get dysregulated. We have to figure out, how do we come back to regulation? And for some of us, if we didn't have attuned caregivers, it's a matter of parenting ourselves, figuring out what is safe for us, figuring out how to love ourselves. And once we regulate our nervous system, then it percolates outwards. So I'm going to start with a little, I should have walked mindfully. So this is going to be a little diagram. So this is me. This is my little nervous system. And this is my nervous system talks to the family. And for some people, it is a chosen family. Right. And my need in this world is to feel safe and to feel loved. And so it's me, my family, and then you can say it's work or community. And then we have society. And you can do a lot more other circles, and then I'm going to say Mother Earth. Ooh. I didn't get enough sleep last night. So I'm going to walk mindfully, walk mindfully, walk mindfully. So this practice has been about embodiment. This practice, this beautiful, gentle practice, Thai invited us how to come home to ourselves. And when I first came to this practice, I was like, what does that mean? Because my home was not safe. My home was dangerous. My home was violent, and it was scary. So it took me a while, like, what does it mean to come home? I actually don't want to go home. So figuring out what home was the beginning of my practice. And I remember the first time I came to the monastery, a monastic was walking, and they saw me, and they just stopped and wholeheartedly bowed to me. I still remember that moment. It's okay. That monk saw me, like fully saw me, and in that moment loved me. And in that moment, there was a co-regulation. There was an expression. My nervous system talked to his nervous system, and slowly my body was like, oh, that's what it feels to be seen. That's what it feels like to be loved. And then I walk a little bit farther down the path, and then other people bow to me, and other people see me for who I am. And so I first came to this practice when I was a baby doctor. I was a pediatric resident, witnessing a lot of suffering in the world. Right? So I had experienced a lot of things as a child, and then was born in Korea, and we're in the middle of military militia rule in Korea at that time. And my parents wanted to leave Korea and come to America. America was the promised land, right? And unfortunately, that separation caused a lot of trauma, and a lot of the racism that my parents experienced in this country created a lot of dysregulation in our household. And there were a lot of barriers to embodiment in my body. Things that I was really touched when Brother Phat Byung talked about the roots of the Vietnam War actually are still here, actually may even be in this room, as well as the answers to war, as well as the answers to such as love and compassion. And so learning about this work, this is the work of David Trelevin. I'm sorry, I didn't put his name, but he talked about trauma-sensitive mindfulness and started talking about all these external factors that are affecting our body and why some of us don't feel safe in our bodies, like white supremacy and capitalism, ableism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, xenophobia, patriarchy, fat phobia. It's endless, right? So when we are shamed for who we are, when we can't be fully who we are, we leave our bodies because it's too painful. Resmaa Menakem is an African-American somatic experiencing practitioner who talks about how racial trauma lives in our body. And he talks about personal trauma, historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and then institutional trauma. And when I teach at the Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine, we talk about the manifestation of racism in our healthcare system, because it is a manifestation of our society, because it is based on genocide and colonialism and capitalism and so much racism that unfortunately are still entangled in every aspect of our society. So our practice is, how can we identify it, right? First step is identifying it. How can we understand it? And how can we transform it? Especially if it lives in our body. So that's a lot of words. We're just going to take a pause. I'm going to introduce you to our first embodiment practice. Every exercise we do is going to be an invitation. So it's called the butterfly hug. I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and just check in with your body. How am I feeling in this moment? And with the butterfly hug, we're looking for shifts in your nervous system. Ooh, I saw a yawn. That's awesome. You're going to cross your hands, link your thumbs, and you're going to put them either on your collarbone or below your collarbone. And you're just going to tap back and forth. And you're just going to, you're kind of a scientist. You're investigating. You're looking for any shifts. A sigh, a yawn, some loosening of muscle tension. And you can even experiment. You can bring it below your collarbone. Ooh, I just took a deep breath. Alrighty. How was that for you? I see some smiles and I see some nods. This is something I teach my patients, especially my little ones, a lot. When they come in with anxiety, when they come in with panic attacks. And it's just an investigation. And sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay, because I'm going to teach you a couple of other things. And the path of embodiment is figuring out Where is my own body in my own nervous system? And what does my body need in this moment? It's a constant checking in. So Dr. Williams gave a wonderful presentation. Clearly, our minds are connected. This is a wonderful, wonderful sculpture at Magnolia Grove Monastery in Batesville, Mississippi. It's about an hour from Memphis. And it is our dear beloved teacher, Thich, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., two wonderful bodhisattvas. And I encourage you to go to Magnolia Grove. It's a beautiful monastery. And this is the sculptures modeled after this beautiful picture of them. They only met in person twice, but clearly it was a deep exchange. Thich talked about, his opposition to the Vietnam War with great risk. As you heard, he suffered greatly. His students suffered greatly, and he knew he needed to go to the roots of U.S. imperialism, and left his homeland and was exiled, and I'm sure that must have been painful. And he talked to people, and Dr. Martin Luther King listened deeply. And he went against the advice of his advisors who said, this is going to detract from the civil rights movement. What are you going to do? If you come out against the Vietnam War, why are you talking about something halfway across the world? And his love of humanity saw Thai's love of humanity. And Dr. Martin Luther King did something very courageous and came out against the war in Vietnam in a very important speech in Riverside Church. And he was assassinated 1 year later to that day. He is a true bodhisattva of great embodiment. And so when we embody our life, when we embody our values, sometimes it's standing up. And so this was the first BIPOC retreat at Magnolia Grove last year, which was very, very joyful. I had the honor of being part of it. And this is in the tradition of the very first People of Color retreat we had at Deer Park in 2004. And I am proud to be a manifestation of that. And so this practice clearly has changed my life. Thich talked about suffering in a way that I had never understood before. And Thich, at the same time, outlined a path of healing. Isn't that amazing? He's like, yes, we suffer, and this is how you take care of it. And you don't have to do it alone, right? You don't have to do it alone, and that is the beauty of the Sangha. And so as the first step as part of my healing was finding safety and finding refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and the Sangha. And for me, it was taking the 5 mindfulness trainings. And for me, it was building Sangha because I wanted that feeling of love and belonging for everyone. And learning how to listen deeply, I brought it into my practice. I was just like, you need to drink this Sangha, Kool-Aid, because it's amazing. And at the same time, Brother Phap Ho, who used to be abbot here at Deer Park, he talked about deep listening in terms of you have to think about what people say and what they don't say. And I'm going to invite you to, as we're all sitting here in this room, enjoy the people who are here and be aware of the people who are not here. Who is missing? And for me, I want this practice to all people who are suffering, especially Black, Indigenous, people of color who have suffered trauma, who need that sense of safety and belonging. So we're going to talk a little bit more about dysregulation and vagus nerve. I only have like 8 minutes. So we're going to do one more practice called vagal toning. So much to talk about. Oh my gosh. So the vagus is a cranial nerve 10, that goes throughout our body. And I learned about the vagus nerve through Stephen Porges and the Polyvagal Theory. And this model of the body has helped me understand my body and my response to trauma and how to heal it. So in traditional biology in medical school, we learn about fight or flight in response to threat, and being in the green zone, which is when you're rest and digest. Steve Porges said, it's not just fight and flight and rest and digest. There's actually another layer called freeze. And this is the most primitive part. It's actually part of our reptilian brain. Isn't that cool? Like reptiles are in our brain. And it's actually the most destructive to our body. Because if you can imagine, we perceive something as a threat, whether it's real or imagined. Depending on our nervous system, some of us are more alert and more acute and more sensitive to perceptions of threat. So in fight or flight, you have adrenaline, cortisol coursing through your veins. And when you are desperate and really, really fearful of your death, you actually freeze and you're stepping on the brake at the exact same time. And that's when we get stuck. And if you can imagine a car stepping on the brake and the gas at the same time, it's going to break down. And that usually is what happens to our body. When our body's dysregulated or stuck, that is when disease manifests and all these thoughts of hopelessness, depression, shame. This is when we're stuck. And this is when people harm themselves, other people, Mother Earth. When you're dysregulated, you're fearful, and that's when racism comes out, bigotry. That is when there's dualistic thinking, things are black and white. And so how do we come down? We figure out things that make us safe. We find people who feel safe, and finally we come down. And sometimes as we come down, there's a little fight or flight energy, and this practice teaches us how to hold it and how to transform it. And when we forget, we go back to the Sangha, and the Sangha brings us back down. So if you can imagine, this is where we have been in the monastery. This is where we want to be. And this is the path actually outlined by Thai and the Buddha. And that's why when people are new to the practice and they're like, I don't know how to do walking meditation, I say, walk behind a monastic. Because Thai's regulated nervous system is imprinted on the bodies of the monastics. And you can feel that, right? And so that's why it's different when you come to the monastery and we have the collective energy. Our nervous systems are all regulating. They're all talking to each other. And then we become regulated. And then we are in our body. And we are grounded. We are mindful. We are compassionate. We're curious. This is where healing happens. This is where authentic insight happens. And this is where curiosity happens. And deep insight about how do I stand up? And for some people, it's how do I step aside? Or how do I move back and allow space and for new voices to come in? So for me, this has been really important for me to understand, like, where am I in my nervous system? If I'm dysregulated, what can I do to calm myself down? Whom can I turn to? And a lot of times, it's my Sangha. So I'm going to introduce you to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is kind of what, the more we strengthen it, the more we live here, the ventral vagal. So it's called vagal toning. So this is an invitation. And we're going to start with the pathway of the vagus. And we're just going to start with the ears. Just kind of uncurl your ears and just kind of massage them. Yeah. Say hello, ears. Oh, I already see a yawn. So we're looking for signs of down regulation, yawning, burping, farting, easing of tension. The next step are your eyes. If you have glasses, you can feel free to take them off. And you just cup your eyes. And then the next step is cupping your cheeks. And I always think of Thay's poem, I hold my face with my two hands. And then your neck, which is, where your voice box lives. You can either put two hands in front or two hands on the sides or one hand on the back, whatever feels in the direction of ease and comfort in your body. Yeah, you could even massage your neck a little bit. And then two hands over your heart. Thank you, my dear heart, for always beating with me, for me. And then two hands over your belly. And then one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And just sending some loving kindness to our beautiful bodies that have helped us and supported us this whole week together. Worked really, really hard. And then I'm going to invite you to do one more cycle at your own pace, and I'm going to do it one-handed. So just uncurling and massaging your ears. We're going to cup our eyes. Hold your face. I hold my face in my two hands. And then around your neck. And two hands over your heart. Two hands over your belly. And then one hand and one on your heart and one hand on your belly. And then you can just slowly bow to yourself and your beautiful body and bring some gratitude. Okay. So we talked about signs of downregulation and creating a rhythm, stability, predictability, and security. These are what helps downregulate our nervous system. For those of us who have a dysregulated nervous system, rocking, walking meditation. So when I first came, I couldn't sit for 30 minutes. Like my mind was like, woo. And that was because silence was dangerous for me. And over the years now, when I walk into the meditation hall and I see everyone gathered together, it's just this feeling of, oh my God, I'm coming home. And so I encourage you to find what is safe, what brings you love in your daily life, what resonated with you here. Who are the people your nervous system resonated with. You know, people, your nervous system was like, hey, what's up? Like, I want to talk to you. Can we stay in touch? And how do we bring our practices, our love, our compassion to the people who need it the most in our world? Because we're not free until we're all free, right? Because dysregulated nervous systems harm themselves, harm others, harm our society, and harm Mother Earth. But if people figure out how to regulate their nervous systems and how to take care of it, it doesn't have to manifest that way. And walking mindfully, walking mindfully, walking mindfully. One of my favorite things, by the way, I love the mitochondria and the placenta. That's just like so deep. Peace in oneself. Peace in the world. Just like we've been learning from the micro to the macro, from the mitochondria, the placenta, to our global health, we have an opportunity to change our collective bodies and create collective awakening. And I have references for you. And so I wish you lots of peace and lots of joy and lots of connection, because when we are fully embodied, then we have the ability, we know how to take care of our bodies, and we want to bring others along because we want to share the love, right? It just amplifies. And thank you for being a beautiful embodiment of Thai, the Buddha, the Sangha. It is a beautiful path, and I am so thankful to be walking alongside all of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Juliet.